everyone, my name is Ezekiel. Hope you are doing wonderfully. In today's video, I'll be walking you through mixing kick snare with Lindell 50 series. Yeah, this is a nice console emulation which I've seen, which made up my mind that I'm gonna try that since when I saw it in the video. I love the tone, I love the way it responds to mix. I've been using SSL console and other console emulations because I so much love mixing with console emulation. And when I give it a try before I made this video, I really love the result and I love the quality the output because I've been looking for when I was mixing with the previous console emulation that I used, I still have to use one or two or three plugins before I could achieve that tone, vintage, warm, and nice tone, which I really want to achieve in the mix. So I'm going to be playing the kick snare, just the kick and snare for you to hear how it sounds like in the mix. Then I'll walk you through the processing which I have done. Firstly, from the high pass filter, which is also the low cut, I'm cutting anything below 40 hertz because there's a kind of rumbleness in the mix whereby if you are boosting the low frequency, everything is going to be pumping up also in the mix. Well, you might not really hear it clearly in the mix, but it's going to sound dirty, a kind of like a floor noise mixing up with your mix. That's why in most mixing, some people used to do say their mix is not clean. It's not all about the frequency, right? About everything. Also, it contributes. These are the little thing that contributes to cleanliness of the mix, and while also the mix is not clean. So anything below 40 hertz, I'm cutting it. I'm also boosting the 40 hertz to plus 6 dB on the low frequency. I want the depth to sound heavy. This is a kind of traditional music that we are doing. It's like a fusion. I'm also cutting 180 hertz minus 9 dB. Also, I'm cutting 1.5 dB from the high mid frequency. Now, I'm also boosting plus 6 dB on 10K. So this is just to add a bite on top of the kick, make it sound clean and shoot out in the mix. Funny enough, this goes with bass guitar, of course, goes with percussion, the talking drum, called which is called gong gong. So there's much of low frequency working on in this music. I still want the kick to have the bandwidth frequency to just come out the low and the high. Listen to it and without and with. So that's what I'm doing about the EQ section. Something's funny here. I love the response of the compressor in this Console 50 series. Of course, I love API EQ. I use it some of the times in my mix to add more texture to the mix, for example, like drums like that. For the character of the API, I love using API EQ. I use it as a pre in Cakewalk, then it's going to be posted into the channel strip of the Cakewalk. So I love the character of this compressor in this plugin. So let me turn it off. I'll turn it on again so you listen to it, then I'll show you what I did on it. All right, this is so lovely. Okay, let me introduce something for you. On the compressor, the threshold is minus 6 point something. Of course, that's the level where I wanted to compress up to, and then the attack is 3 seconds. Also, my threshold 6 to 1. The reason why I increased the compressor to that extent is not just to compress the signal, but to just add more attitude and more character into the signal. That's why I push it up to 6 dB. If it's much, sometimes depending on the signal that you're working on, it's gonna work through your mix. I'm leaving the release time about 150 ms because it's already giving me a smart attack and smart response on the kick, which I so much love. I love the character of this compressor. I'm using the soft. I'm not using the NIV and the feedback because I think NIV, the way the character works, like a kind of saturation on this section. And from the input section, I'm boosting close to 3 dB to add more punch, to just push the signal into the compressor so that it can grip it and be more rigid and more attack. That's what I'm doing on the input section. Gonna play the kick again, so you listen to the way the gate responds. What I'm trying to do, because there's a lot of bleeding in the drum, so I'm using it to be smart, getting floor noise. So just let me play that and listen to how it works on this section. This is not much. What I'm doing here is HYST is in default setting, so which goes with what I'm doing here. Then my threshold minus 10 dB. The range is like 30 dB, so that's working with the signal flow. The release time is close to 500 ms. I'm using fast attack. I'm also using expander. That's what I'm doing about this one. Listen to overall, and I'll turn it off and turn it in. Listen to how everything sounds like. Let's listen to how the kicks sound like with a snare drum before I show you what I did on that. Alright, firstly, I need to show you, look at this section with a quad EQ on cakewalk. I'm rolling off the low frequency up to 100 hertz, and then I'm also rolling off 10 kilohertz. So everything is going back to the console emulation here back, because that's also adding to the character and the tone output of the entire mix for me. So now listen, look at this one. I'm gonna be playing snare drum alone, all by itself, without the plugin. All right, so let me tell you what I did here. Firstly, from the high pass filter, I'm rolling off 100 hertz. I still don't want the kick to sound through the snare drum. So that's why I'm rolling off up to 100 hertz. Then on the low frequency, I'm boosting to 100 hertz. Then I'm using Chef EQ type. What I'm basically doing, and from that 200 that I boost, the frequency in that range is still going to be compensating and to the snare drum signal for me, adding body and at the bottom on the snare drum. So that's what I'm using, the Chef EQ type. From the low mid frequency, I'm cutting out 500 minus 500 hertz, close to minus 8 dB. That's the frequency that I don't want, that will be sounding muddied in the snare drum. And I'm also boosting plus 9 dB on 8 kilohertz. This is giving me a nice punching on snare drum and bringing out the shell and the ring part of the snare drum for me, which is going to make it sound like a real snare drum. This is basically what I'm doing here. Just listen to that without the EQ and with the EQ. All right, that's about this section. So the next section is the compressor again. I love the character of this 50 series compressor because I used the 250 series of the API compressor, which I so much love also because of the vintage warm tone that it has. So the character of this one, I love it so much. Like as usual, so the 100, the link is still in 100%, 100 percentage. So I'm using the soft nail. I'm also boosting 6 dB on the ratio section. So my release is still the same thing, 150 ms on the snare drum. So the attack as usual is 3 seconds. So which the threshold is close to minus 12 dB. I really want smash compression on that snare drum. Listen to the compressor, how it sounds like with and without. To me, it sounds like a butter on a bread for me. Anyway, I don't eat butter. Anyway, but that's just how it sounds to me. It's not just the aggressive tone like that. It controls the response. So I love the character of the compressor on the snare drum. Now back to the gate stroke expander. I'm only using the gate. So as usual, 4 dB on the HIST. So the threshold is minus 20. The range is 12 dB. So my release time is 500 ms on that one. So listen to the snare drum and the kick together. All right, that's it about this section. So I'm quickly going to be showing you the snare bottom just to give a summary about that. So what I'm doing here with the channel strip EQ, so I'm rolling off the low frequency to 100 Hertz. That's about that. And then I'm using stock plugin. I'm using saturation knob up to like 10 dB with the neutral. That one is giving me a kind of saturation to make the snare drum to sound harsh. Somehow, let's listen to the way it sounds like with the saturation. You could hear the little effect of the saturation on that snare drum, so which is going to also repair some damages that might be. I really don't like the bottom as well, but it's with this one is giving me the result. Now let's go to the plugin. Let's listen to without and with the snare drum. So what I'm doing here, let me quickly summarize what I'm doing here. So I'm boosting a 5K on the high frequency. The low MIDI EQ, I'm boosting 1K plus 6 dB. On the low frequency, so I'm using chef EQ for both the low and the high so that it can bring the details of the highs in the signal. I'm boosting over 6 dB on 200 Hertz from the low. So that one is going to boost all the low frequency to give this more body. So, and I'm rolling off 130 Hertz from the low frequency because I still don't want the kick to sound from the snare bottom. Finally, back to the compressor section. I'm only doing minus 4 dB on the threshold. So I'm giving minus 3 ms on the attack. My ratio is 6 dB. So the release time is different, and this time around, so I'm having like above 300 ms on the release section. So it can give me a smooth response on the snare bottom. I'm also using soft nail. Then I'm boosting back the output plus 3 dB to match up with the output level. Also the gate, almost like the default setting on the gate. So let's just listen to everything together, how it sounds like. Let me just quickly do something. Let me go to the drum boss. Let me release the drum boss mix that I've done for it. So let's listen to how everything sounds together. Alright, that's all about this section, mixing with Lindell 50 Stories channel plugin. I so much love this one. I really wanted to drop a comment below. What's your experience on Lindell 50 Stories on your mix, either on vocal, on anything you use it for? Let's share your experience together by dropping comment below. Thank you so much for stopping by to watch this video. We'll meet again in the next video. Bye.